as an anecdote to my students, I would often bring up the Blair Witch Project from 1999. Um, Made for a song of a budget, which was under a million. I mean, sort of, it was anywhere between like 200 to $750,000, something like that. This found footage gem, which, let's be honest, kind of brought back. I mean, because the genre did kind of exist, but sort of specifically the found footage horror genre invented. And that movie went on to spawn, of course, a franchise, but in itself, it made around $250 million or something like that. And let's not talk about the franchise itself. I mean, how much money that made. I don't know what it's about the horror genre itself. But three movies of late have kind of restored my faith in independent cinema and in showing the finger to Hollywood. Because we see these movies, we see this obscene amount of money being pumped into films that end up being shit, right? And you wonder, I mean, couldn't this money have been spent to like do something better in the world rather than waste it on a piece of shit movie? I mean, again, when I say obscene budgets, I say 150, $200 million. That's the kind of money that could almost like, sort of kickstart, like, sort of a small economy, like the country's economy, right? But here you have Hollywood rolling out all of this moolah in the hopes that they will sort of recover it. But then you see the movie and it turns out to be a complete pile of shit. Now, the three movies I have in sort of not in mind, I mean, these are three movies that have come out recently, and I would say are proof positive of a formula that is fundamentally, if you have an original idea, if you have a director who's willing to go to the very hilt, who believes in the project, right? And of course, let's also add, is talented enough to deliver, then budget is immaterial. You may say, wait a second, budget isn't immaterial. But tell me this. Now, the three movies in question are Iron Lung, Obsession, and Backrooms, all in the horror genre, right? All by, well, I would say in the case of Iron Lung, by what is his name, Mike Hirschbach or Marky Plier, if that's his handle or whatever. Please forgive me, I am old. First time director in his case. Kane Parson, who at the tender age of 20 years old, directed his first movie. And then you have Curry Barker, who I think this is his second feature-length film. Okay, so in two instances, you have first-time directors, and in the second, it's a second-time director. But again, sort of like, people who are just finding their feet in the industry, and yet they have gone on to deliver movies that have been gangbusters. First of all, Iron Lung. Iron Lung was made for a budget of around $4 million. I think almost entirely self-funded. The movie has gone on to make $40 million. Okay. Backrooms was made for $10 million. And as of like 2 minutes ago, when I just checked, it's made $270 million. Obsession was made for $750,000 and has gone on to make so far $300 million. I mean, these are the numbers that would be the wet dream of any Hollywood producer. $750 million, so that's less than $1 million. And I've always say this, like sort of when it's less than $1 million, that's like less than the catering budget on these big movies. So this guy wrote, directed, blah, 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 this film for $750,000. And I would say over the course of a month and a half, almost, they've made $300 million. I don't even know what the math is on those returns, but it's a lot of money, man. It's like Let's not do it. My math is horrible. Okay, this is what I find so encouraging, that you have filmmakers out there who have an idea. The idea is good enough to run with, so much so that they don't end up being like these niche movies that like sort of a handful of critics, say, this is a great movie. We really wish the rest of the public would see it. No, these are movies that the public come out in droves to watch. $300 million is a fuck ton of people turning out to the cinema to watch these movies. And I'm so happy that sort of when it comes to like, these traditional models, both for filmmaking and producing movies, that Hollywood is so, I would say, fatally bound to. These movies fly in the face of that. I think it's worthwhile me talking about the movies individually, which I will. But I'm also going to talk about sort of like, how these movies were produced. And let's get into that first. So, Iron Lung, I mean, the guy, of course, I didn't know him very well prior to the film. But the movie was largely self funded thanks to, I think, his success as a YouTube creator, and paid for by himself $4 million, goes on to make $40 million. And thanks to the success of it, because that is a straight up success, he then, of course, because I'm sure a lot of the cast and crew on this were paid modestly, he then, sort of pays out and gives them bonuses. Amazing. In the case of what's it called, Backrooms, you did have a studio behind that movie, and that is, of course, A24. And I'm not saying that the other movies, like for example, Obsession, didn't have a studio behind it, but I mean sort of a known studio, right? Like A24. So they did have a studio behind it, and despite that studio, and I'm not saying that A24 has, the kind of money that maybe somebody like Paramount or Warner Brothers might have. But I mean, I'm sure if this guy had told them, hey, I would like to make this movie for like maybe 20, 30, 40, $50 million, what's cost up? I don't know. But I mean, making it for, again, a very modest sum of $10 million. And please check out my review on the movie. Comes, and I mean, it doesn't show, which is why I absolutely love Obsession. Yes, the story is singular, and I'll get to that in a second. We'll talk about the movies. But the fact is that for $750,000, right? It's a professional grade movie. I mean, whether it's the special effects, whether it's the production design or the look of the movie, or sort of even the actors in it, nothing about it looks cheap. I think to an extent, Iron Lung did look a little low budget. That tends to be something that does happen with these movies. There is that one scene in it which has just fantastic special effects. It's this one scene where there's like sort of crack in its submarine, and sort of that sort of living blood kind of rushes through, but then rushes out. It was amazing, man. I would say it was almost like the equivalent of the, what's it called? The atomic blast scene from the recent, the that Godzilla minus zero. It was really well done. So I'm just so impressed by these guys, and it's so heartening to see that, every time, you have critics say, oh, cinema is dead, Hollywood is running into the ground with these endless like franchises and reboots and cinematic universes, along comes filmmakers like this. And I like how you now have it in triplicate, where you have these three guys showing that sort of, yes, and most definitely in very unconventional ways. Like, so most of the times it was like you'd end up, in film school, blah, 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 blah. In this case, these guys have nothing to do with any of that. They're sort of people who are out there. Clint Parsons in particular, I would say that's a great example. Um, he was just like a young guy screwing around on YouTube, coming up with something that was a really interesting idea. And then somebody, realizing or seeing the worth in it and saying, you know what, let's do this. There was that movie that came out last year, and I really didn't like it, but that was also another example of this. It was called Sorry Baby. I'm forgetting the name of the filmmaker behind it, but she too, I think, was is I think she's non-binary. So they uh were like they were making skits on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and somebody found their work and was like, you know what? Let's make a movie. And they went and did it. I like that. I really like that. I like this model where you're cutting through a lot of the bullshit, you're cutting through a lot of the middlemen. It is, and if you see on Backrooms, a lot of those people, a lot of those sort of horror producer luminaries are backing this young guy and saying, you know what, there's a good career behind this. And that's what I would say with, for example, like, let's start off with the movies themselves, like Markiplier. Yes, I mean, it's you're running off of, like, you're adapting a video game, right? Very interesting one, but I think there was okay. My main criticisms of Iron Lung are the runtime, because you can tell that there's, like, this movie needed to be tighter, right? Because there aren't like some great, like, reveals or, like, some major set pieces involved that can sort of warrant this being almost, I would say, like 2 hours long, right? I think that it should have been a lot more concise. Um, Markiplier, I think this is his first acting role. I think there are times when you feel like the guy can eventually or will eventually be a better actor, but at least in this movie, not so much. I still like the idea. I still like the sheer horror of sort of being alone at the bottom of a ocean of blood, and sort of this mysterious monster and the quiet rapture and all of this interesting stuff. I just think that sort of there was maybe more that could be done, or more that could have been sort of interpreted from the game. But I really want to see where this guy goes in his career, because he has a promising one for sure. Okay. Then we come to, and I'm going in order of which I think was the best, right? So second is going to be Obsession. I know you guys may disagree with me, but I think Backrooms is a better movie. Obsession. Obsession, the story is fantastic. And I think it's fantastic primarily because of the performance by uh, Indy Navarrete, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, whatever, man. She was from, she's from Lois and Clark, Clark and Lois. You guys know what I'm talking about. Okay. She does a fantastic job, man. And I mean, I know later on they even said that, oh, she was only paid $20,000. And then this one person did come out to say that of the $20,000 she did make on this movie, most of that is going to go into, like, expenses, because, she has to pay PR whenever she shows up at these events. She has to pay for makeup and wardrobe and all of that stuff. So by the end of, the whole press circuit and all of that stuff, she'll be done. And then this is another sort of kind of, I wouldn't say a criticism, but somebody did mention this. They were like, I think it was the art director or the makeup, the head, the head of makeup. He was like, I only made like $7,000 off of this movie. And in response, the director, the Terry Barker, said that, yes, we paid this because, again, it was a no budget movie. And I don't think he was like hiring like high end or talent from Hollywood. He was hiring people who he could very frankly afford. And he was like, the rewards go to the people who I guess invested the most in it, which is fair. Because essentially what he's trying to say is that those people who bankrolled this movie, those people who helped produce it, and literally gambled on it, invested their own money into it, those are the people who should get the most rewards. So I mean, those $300 million and them laughing all the way to the bank, yes, absolutely. But then somebody counter to say that, like for example, Markiplier from Iron Lung, who, after the success of the movie, gave, I think, everyone like a $10,000 bonus, considering the amount of money that he has made, Curry Barker, in multiples of the Iron Lung money. Could definitely, I mean, be a nice guy, and just give everyone a bonus. But then he did say that, like, the work you guys did on this is most definitely going to get you noticed in the industry. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, if this lady is not picked up, the lead actress, and does not get a boatload of offers after this, then Hollywood is just losing out. So Obsession has a nice sort of central like gimmick to it. It's got an interesting idea. I think the strength of this movie lies, of course, in its lead, because she's amazing. Um, and because she is so good, everything that happens in it is accentuated. Like, when she's acting like a complete fucking loon, like the girlfriend from hell, literally, I think she could be. Um, just it's so good, right? And everyone else in the movie is good too, right? But she's dynamite. She's really good, right? Um, who else? I mean, yes, then you have a lot of other things like going on in the film, like some pretty interesting. By interesting, I mean just like these really either terribly awkward moments, right? Or um, some really sort of like, oh my God, like sort of that really make you squeamish. But where I think I can see why the movie did so well, like I can see how it appeals, because when I was there in the cinema, predominant like sort of age, the average audience age was again sort of your teens, like sort of teens and young adults. So I can see why they would turn out to a movie like this, and thus the numbers. But I think the real, like sort of, not to say that these other movies aren't good, but the real, like, sort of film and all of these is Backrooms. I've already reviewed it. I would love for you guys to go and check that out, because that is a movie, thanks to the script by Will Sudick, that really goes places that Obsessions does not. I mean, Obsessions is one of those, like, for example, movies that a lot of these horror movies kind of rest upon, where it's like, the central idea and how you kind of run with it. But Backrooms is something that really, I would say, is like this consciousness expanding moment. I really felt that when I was watching the movie. And I love the fact that sort of there were people out there who were willing to take a risk on it, were saying, you know what, this is something that we can see being a critical and commercial success. And I just love the fact that this year alone, we have 3 examples of how your traditional Hollywood model, right, is still working. It's not like Hollywood has gone belly up, but we now have alternatives to it. We now have a chance for people on YouTube or any other social media platform, for creators to get noticed and to get their films bankrolled. So I'll end this one by saying, if you guys haven't seen any of these 3 movies, please, by all means, go and do that. I'm not sure if Iron Lung is still in cinemas, but the other 2 most definitely are. And, I hope that this same formula, if you will, now goes beyond horror, and we start seeing it in other genres. I really hope so.